Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Hi, my name is Vivian Acquah, and I'm a certified inclusion strategist. And I have to admit something. I've been playing hooky on LinkedIn for a very long time, but I have a good reason for that, and that is holiday should be spent not working, not LinkedIning, not doing anything with social media. And I had the utmost time doing a train trip or a road trip via train where we went to France, we went to Spain, we went to Portugal, all those places that now are burning. I didn't put anything on fire, didn't do that, not the cause of that, but the trip itself, it was so relaxing. No fight or debates or being stuck in traffic in the car or going by plane, waiting on, getting your luggage or packing your stuff. We made the decision to take 7 days and we went to so many places that I will definitely write up something on LinkedIn. But for now, I was just sharing that for the next guest speak. I was just sharing that she is on my, you know, top guest speaker list. And I was just like, when and how should I approach her? Because we don't know each other yet. And I don't want to come across stalkerish. And yes, even I have my moments of shyness because I look up to a lot of people, certain people, and Elaine is one of them that I luckily found a way. So I read an article in Dutch and it was about Elaine writing a book about being interviewed about her book Unlearning Silence, and there were certain words that were being used that I was just like, no, this is a clickbait article, first of all, and second of all, I have found her way of writing in a way that is supportive, inclusion, supportive of culture, but also authentic. And I saw some elements of her, but I also made sure that she was aware about what was written, just to make sure that, are you sure that this is written about you? So, introducing the guest speaker for today, because Unlearning Silence, Unleashing Potential is inspired by the book of Elaine Hering. Lynn Hering, and she is, let me look her up. She helps people build communication, collaboration, and she also helps people with building conflict management skills. So she's the author of Unlearning Silence. If you don't have the book, reach out, learn, read it, because it should be part of your culture Bible. And Unlearning Silence is about how to speak your mind, unleash talent, and live more fully. So on her fifth birthday, she wished the world peace, which she still wishes and works towards. So welcome, Elaine.
Vivian, thank you so much for having me.
Mm-hmm. Of course, of course. So we started, this is the first time that we are meeting each other online, right? So we started with the introduction about talking about the preteen stuff. And I also want to tweak in a question because unlearning silence in the workplace is very valuable. But what do you do when you want to apply certain elements and are also a parent?
Great question. I also love that we are not shying away from the pain points that so many of us experience. Now,
Exactly,
I
exactly, exactly.
I'm trained as a lawyer, so we've got to do some good definition of terms,
Yeah.
right? Because there's so many different definitions of silence. Some people say
Mhm.
silence is golden. We need more
Yeah.
time on our yoga mats for that meditative silence.
Mhm.
That's not the silence I'm talking about. That's great.
Mhm.
But the
Yeah.
silence I'm talking about is when there's not enough room in the relationship, in the conversation, on the team, in the organization for your needs, goals, hopes, and concerns. It's
Mm.
when you want to say something, you think you have something, you might have something of value, but you feel like you have to bite your tongue in
Mm.
order to keep the peace.
Yeah.
That if you ask a question, you offer a difference of perspective, you're going to rock the boat, and that's dangerous. And therefore you keep to yourself, right? You edit
Yeah.
the things that you would say or you would do, or the parts of yourself you might bring, which from an inclusion perspective, you cannot have inclusion. You cannot be included. You cannot belong if you feel like you have to silence yourself. And yet so many
Mhm.
people at work and at home feel like they need to.
Yeah.
Now, the converse of silence is voice. And voice, I don't mean the words that you say in a meeting or to your kid. I mean, how do you move through the world? What are the choices you make for your day-to-day actions? So when it comes to parenting and that relationship,
Mhm.
there's so many things. How do I use my own voice to
Yeah.
shape the world and the relationship, our family dynamic, the way that I want or need? Like, I'm still working on I don't want someone touching me all the time, climbing
Yeah.
on me. We used to call it mommy jungle gym. That was cute when my kid was 3. He's now
Yeah.
almost 8, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's a
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
different situation, and I know you're in the preteen phase. How do I use my voice to shape the relationship and dynamic? And the question I get most is, how do I make sure I don't silence my kid?
Mm.
Because so many of us have experienced that over time,
Yeah.
right, from our parents, from society, fitting us into expectations of who we should be, to the point where we feel powerless, to the
Yeah.
point that sometimes we don't know who we are, and we spend a lot of time in adulthood trying to figure that out. So how do I not replicate that same pain, or trauma, if you wanna go there, for my kid?
I wanna add something to that because you were mentioning something that I have to, underline or mark in this conversation. That is, we have learned to silence ourselves through different cultures, and whether it's our parents, whether it's the community that we come from, whether it's the country that we live, whether it's the nationality that we have, there are so many things that play into us being silenced. But also, we are both women,
Yes.
where we go through a different lens, and then also women of color, that the silence part is something that I'm still working. It's a work in progress to unlearn it, because it
Yes.
has been part of my DNA for so long that it's um it's a tango, internal tango, that I have with myself when
Yeah.
I want to let's I don't want to deactivate the Ghanaian part of myself, but I want to minimize the auntie that is sitting on my shoulder, that has the critique on everything. Or should you do that? No, you shouldn't. Or you should be silenced. Why are you talking about our dirty laundry, right?
There's so many layers to that, and the Ghanaian auntie sounds a lot like the Asian auntie.
Like I said, we are similar.
I mean, this has been the most mind-boggling part of the work
Yeah.
for me, because I
Mhm.
talk with our Latina sisters who say,
Mm.
our abuelas, our grandmothers
Oh,
taught
yeah.
us, right?
Oh, yeah.
"Calladita te ves más bonita." You're prettier if you shut up, or you're prettier when you
Mm.
shut up.
All these proverbs.
All
Oh,
the all
well,
the proverbs, right? You've
they're
got
not
them
healthy,
too.
because they
We're
are
talking,
ingrained. Oh, yes, we have them.
"Don't
They
hang
are
the dirty laundry."
ingrained. Yeah.
That is how culture is passed down, and I love that you
Yeah.
said, "I don't want to get rid of my Ghanaian culture."
Yeah.
Right? The question is, if we are susceptible or conditioned by all of these
Mhm.
different proverbs, all of these expectations over time,
Yeah.
the unlearning part of it is to really interrogate what of what I've learned still
Mhm.
serves me today,
Yeah.
serves who I am and who I want to become today. And to the extent that it's not 100%, I love that real time feedback. Thank you. We got placards and everything. I didn't know I was on a game show. I love it. Right? To the extent that it doesn't serve us, that
Mhm.
we as adults actually have agency to choose how we
Yes.
want to move forward, what we want to shed, what we want to leave
Mhm.
behind, what we think from our cultures or upbringings, our family's origin is fantastic or awesome, and we want to bring
Yeah.
it forward. But the trap is, if we don't do that interrogation, we operate on autopilot. And we so often perpetuate the stereotypes, the biases, the boxes that other people have given us, rather than unleashing our full potential at
Yeah.
work or in the depth and the fullness, the love in relationships. You cannot love someone if you are silencing them. You are
Yeah.
loving a version of them that you would prefer rather than who they
But it's
actually
also it's also you creating a hidden identity of yourself, where it's not even being a chameleon, right? I'm looking
are.
for that word, shifting, shading. There is a word that
Shape-shifting.
yeah, shape shifting, where you're deluding yourself, and
Yeah.
sometimes deluding yourself, that can also cause stress within yourself, maybe even end into a burnout if you're not allowed to be yourself in a space that you are. So I love that you are talking about it, but I want to go back to the script, and that
Mm.
is the question that I normally start with. Why do you believe that we need to humanize the workplace?
Because we're humans. I mean, I can go more in depth. It seems so obvious because
Yeah,
we're all human beings. At the
yeah,
end of the day, we,
mm, yeah,
you, I, the people listening, we are not AI. We are not bots. We are not
mm,
robots. We are not
yeah,
mechanisms. We are
yeah,
living, breathing human beings with emotions, with creativity, with cares, with hopes, with dreams. That is fundamentally what makes us uniquely different from any AI bot, right? That is our. I got carded. I got carded.
I wanna underline something that you said, because first of all, you started with we are human. Second of all, is we need to remind people that we human are unique,
Yes.
which in my mind goes into Beyonce's song "Unique."
You can sing it. I won't.
No, 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 I will not. I'm playing it in my mind. I
I
will
love it.
definitely make sure to share it. But it seems like along the road we have forgotten
Mm,
that we're dealing with people, we're dealing with emotions, we're dealing with people that have a whole community, that are supporting a whole community.
yeah.
And then again, we are adding in AI, assuming that everything needs to be fast,
Yeah.
while so many people are now even more investing in silencing themselves, right? Going to retreat, going to silence retreats, or going to something else. So there is a paradox there. There is really a paradox there.
The world is a noisy place, right? If we talk
Mm.
about people going
Yeah,
to silent retreats, it's
yeah,
the I want to get away from it all,
yeah,
which only lasts for as long as you are away and then it
yeah,
fades. Versus
yeah.
how do I create a life that is sustainable? How do I create the conditions for myself and the people I care about, the people on my team, where we can actually live fully, right? Where we
Yeah.
can be more of the parts of ourselves that are actually the differentiator. What makes us different from AI or a bot is that we are
Mm.
human, that we
Yeah,
have emotions, that we
yeah.
have new insights in this way. And not everything is about efficiency.
Mm.
And that's
Yes.
part of the trap of capitalism is how do we be more efficient and create more widgets for a lower price
Yeah,
versus what is unique about us
yeah,
as a
exactly.
being. So why do we need to humanize the workplace? Because if humans are going to continue to be part of the workplace, we cannot be humans in the workplace if we
Mm.
don't humanize the workplace to
Yeah,
allow for the reality that we are more than our job titles,
yeah.
that we're more than the functions that we play, that at any given time, something is happening in someone's life. Someone has died, someone has just given birth,
Mhm.
someone got a diagnosis, someone has a heartache that they feel that they have to hide. Here's the thing, all the energy that we spend trying to hide or silence our humanity could be spent doing something else.
Yes, exactly. And it's impacting people being high performance, right? Being high performers, and also impacting collaboration, because if I dilute myself in a way that I'm only bringing 25%,
Mhm.
then you're missing out on 75%, which is a waste for both, for the different stakeholders that people engage with.
Yeah, and I write about silencing our uniqueness in
Mhm.
my book Unlearning
Yeah.
Silence, and it's a lesson that I learned the hard way because you mentioned we're both women, we have different cultures and backgrounds. We are not
Mhm.
part of most dominant groups when we
Yeah.
are in predominantly white
Yeah.
spaces.
Mhm.
Now, when I joined one of the first firms, the first teams I was on after graduating law school, as a junior person, you're often taught wait your turn,
Mhm.
look around, observe what works, learn the dynamics, and then start to do things. Don't just show up and think you know everything. And I don't
Mhm.
think it's that binary, right? But I did that to a detriment. I mimicked the behaviors of the successful people in our
Mhm.
firm, in part because I was told your job is to become the next version of that person. Not that I was supposed
Mhm.
to become my person, unleash my potential. I was supposed to become a mini of that person,
Yeah.
right? And so you learn, let me do these pre-approved behaviors that have worked for someone else,
Yeah.
except they're not
Without
you.
even considering your culture.
Your culture, whether it's going to work for me as an Asian
Yeah.
American woman
Mm.
versus the white woman that I
Yeah.
was mimicking, and it got me pretty far. But it
Mhm.
also completely diluted my sense of self, that
Yeah.
I actually had something to offer that was unique,
Mhm.
right? And if you read a lot of leadership development books, influence books, Cialdini, right? They say mimicry, if you want to influence people, oh, you're getting uncomfortable. We got the like clothes change. But and not joking, right? Again, interrogate who you're consuming, whose books you're reading, whose videos you're watching, because it's
Exactly.
positioned as world-class prescription. This is best practice, but it is best practice as written from the standpoint of a white man. I am not a white man. The advice doesn't apply in the same way. That's how I got to studying silence.
I just wanna say, because you have demystified the reason why I deliberately am interviewing, authors
Yeah.
with a bicultural background,
Yeah.
because I wanna see different people being added to the leadership development
Yeah.
books
Yes.
list.
Yes. Yes.
So that's why I wanted to, stop you
Thank you.
silently,
Totally.
strategically,
I love it. We're
because
doing the highlighter.
I wanna underline this, that we need to expand the way we view leadership,
Yes.
and leadership has to be redefined. I'm not saying that we need to erase the white man or white woman. We need to expand, so that, because there are more leaders who have a different background,
Yes.
from a different economic society as well, and also have maybe my Dunglish accent, or maybe a different accent as well. And we need to create a different narrative that they can also be leaders, right? So, yeah.
1,000%. Neri Kara Silman wrote a book, Pioneers: 8 Lessons from Immigrant Entrepreneurs. And in it,
Mm,
she analyzes or acknowledges, everybody cites good to great.
hmm.
Jim Collins, if you look at that data, how many of those companies still exist? How many of
Mm,
them are still great versus how
mm,
many of them are even still good? Right?
yeah,
It's a snapshot in time from one point of view. Now, to be clear, I'm writing from one point of view as well.
yeah.
I think I'm adding to the canon. To the point
Hmm.
about mimicry, though, right? The advice literally was, if you want people to say yes to you, to like you, to want to do business with you, you should try to look and sound like them. Okay, how can I do that? I tried. I tried wearing the suit. I tried pausing with the lilt in my
Hmm.
voice, right? I
Hmm.
tried telling stories in the same way. That gets you pretty far, but it actually erases or silences the
Yeah,
most powerful part of yourself, which
yeah,
is that uniqueness, which
yeah.
goes to inclusion and humanizing the workplace of, is there room on our team, in this organization? Do we actually celebrate uniqueness, which, by the way, is central
Mhm.
to innovation?
Yeah, yeah.
Or are we looking for people to act like bots, to comply, to mimic, and to replicate? And those are two very different cultures.
And what I would also like to add, given the fact that the way the world is operating right now, or the way that a lot of companies are operating right now, is that they work with different people from different countries together, and having somebody who has the cultural intelligence or the cultural sensitivity of, as a woman, I'm not supposed to give a hand to men in certain regions, or as a woman, or as an individual, I need to understand that people from Asia respond, their
Mm,
enthusiasm is a different way of responding than you would assume in the Western world, or the Netherlands, or somewhere else in Europe, right? So having that knowledge, or somebody with a different background, or having that cultural sensitivity, it's also a Trojan horse that you can
mm,
take advantage of in a positive way, right?
mhm,
I know that taking advantage of is weird for me to say that, but in a positive way, and use it strategically.
Yeah.
because we're not only operating within the Western society. I know that Africa is popping, Nigeria is popping, Ghana is popping, South Africa is popping, right?
Yeah.
So you want to be able to connect. But I'm, I realize I'm skipping my whole script, but I just want to know and want to learn. There are two lessons that I'm looking for when finding out why you wrote your book.
Mm.
But also the additional question that I have is, what part did your son inspire you in writing that book?
Mm. Let me take those questions one at a time.
Yeah.
How did I write this book? I mean, really, it was out of frustration of what I thought was missing from the leadership development canon.
Mhm.
I spent more than a decade teaching concepts from getting to yes, concepts from the Harvard negotiation project and the progeny, sort of the lineage, sort
Yeah.
of the highest levels of leadership development that are held up as this is how you do the world. And
Mhm.
in training other people on those skills from the inside, I noticed that there's still, even if those tools are useful, there are still some people who don't negotiate, still
Yeah.
some people who don't have the difficult conversations, still some
Yeah.
people who don't give or receive feedback no matter how much their manager or HR tells them they should. And
Mhm.
so, as practitioners, as thought leaders, our approach shouldn't be if our advice isn't working for you, you must be doing it wrong. Our
Mhm.
approach should be what gives? Like, what are we
Yeah.
missing? And the pattern I kept seeing was one of silence. That
Mm.
in that we're not factoring in power dynamics, we're not factoring in culture, we're not factoring in upbringing, we're not factoring in sub dominant and non-dominant identities and how that shapes the messages we've received over time. And you if I have learned silence in my family of origin and how I grew up, it frankly, the silence was a survival strategy, right, as
Mhm.
an immigrant.
Yeah.
And then I walk into a workplace and they say, "If you want to raise, just say so or just negotiate." There's so much that's missing
That's
in
a
there,
conflict. That's a conflict in itself. Yeah.
including all the research that says when women negotiate, you are penalized if you're not balancing the likability and the competence rate. The advice is not universal.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's how I ended up writing Unlearning Silence. It really was a decades long process of what's missing from what we're holding up as best practice and how can I add to that canon, which is very much the spirit of the
Mhm.
program on negotiation and the Harvard negotiation project of how do we keep getting better? How do we keep getting better at helping people
Mhm.
be people in the workplace?
Yeah.
My son, I think I would have written this honestly. This feels vulnerable. I would have written this book whether or not he was in the picture
Mm.
because it was so bottled up inside me, it needed to come out.
Mhm.
As I think it relates to him,
Yeah.
and it is the coaching to myself every day is how
Mm.
do I, as I'm raising my son, make sure that I am cultivating his voice,
Mm.
his sense of voice, his sense of agency, coupled with boundaries
Mhm.
and impact on other
Definitely.
people.
Yeah.
It is often the world that I think of wanting for him and his generation. But whenever people say, I want to make it better for the next generation, I get impatient.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes, I want it better for them, but I want it better for us too.
Yeah.
I want
True.
it better for us now because we have to live it.
Yeah.
Um, and we have a lot of conversations, even at his young age, about privilege. We're walking down the street the other day. I got a little spooked by a shadow I saw behind a bush. And so I moved him on the other side of me to put my body between him and me to protect him. And then we walked by, and it was some guy standing there looking at his phone, right? It wasn't a big
Mhm.
deal, it wasn't a threat. And he said, I
Mhm.
think you might be overreacting. And I said, we have different threat profiles in the
Yeah.
world because I'm a
Yeah.
woman and you're a boy and you'll grow into a man. Um, and we interact with the world differently.
And
And
he's
that
7 and he told you that?
he
He
told me,
asked.
no, I'm overreacting, and I chose to make it a learning moment. Right? Where I'm like, you and your
Yeah.
father will have a different privilege than I do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
your job is to use that privilege for good. which she
Mhm.
already knows, right? When kids at school are bullying each other, you don't just stand by or walk away. You can walk away to get a teacher, to get help.
Yeah.
You say something, use that to the point where another parent said, my daughter, who's very petite, said that your son said to her, if anyone gives you trouble, let me know. I'll take care of them. And I was like, oh, that sounds more mafia esque than I think it means. But use your privilege for
Yeah.
good, use your strength for good, because you
Mhm.
can't change the fact that you were born a different gender or a sex
Yeah.
assigned at birth, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But whatever identities, apparent and non-apparent, we carry, we can use them,
Yeah.
right? And influence the world around us.
I love this conversation, and we can dive in a little deeper, but I also wanna provide some value for leaders,
Mm.
because how can leaders develop greater empathy for their teams?
Yeah. I mean, there's so much. If people
Mhm.
are looking for citations, this is chapter
Yeah.
5 of my book, How We Silence
Mhm.
People Even When We Don't
Ooh.
Intend. And then, very practically, chapter 7 and 9, How to Stop Silencing People. Very self
Mhm.
explanatory. But breaking it down, I think creating more empathy for people, the first step, this is double loop learning, right? So you got to start with your mindset. The first step is to remember that not everyone is like you.
Mm.
That's not rocket science. That is not rocket science. If we stop and think, we know Vivian and Elaine are different people.
Yeah. Yeah. There are
Jin,
some there may be some connections there.
yes, but we are fundamentally different human
Yeah.
beings. Now, the
Yeah.
trap, though, is when we are busy, stressed, and tired and
Mm.
operating quickly, which is basically the modus operandi for most of the world,
Mm.
we don't stop to
Yeah.
remember we're different. So,
Mhm.
in the workplace, the leader's defaults become the way that we work. So in the
Yeah.
workplace, often we assume leadership. You were talking about broadening the definition of what leadership is.
Yeah.
Leadership in many corporate spaces worldwide tends to be you speak in 3 succinct bullet points, no ums, just the right amount of emotion to show that you care, but not
Yeah.
too much that you lose credibility, particularly if you present as a woman.
Yeah.
That's one very narrow definition of effectiveness, of
Mhm.
communication, versus how are we wired? In what ways might we be missing out as leaders because we are real-time processors, right? The more that we talk things out, I, as a leader, might be a real-time process. The more I talk things out, the more clear the idea gets. So I say, hey, Vivian, let's jump on a call.
Yeah.
And Vivian, who communicates more effectively by typing and is a post processor, meaning in the meeting she can't quite figure out what to say, but 20 minutes later she has the best idea that anyone on the team ever has
That's
had.
me. That's
Okay,
me.
right? That's so many of us. This is also
Yeah.
Kahneman's work on slow and fast thinking if we need to cite a male for it to be legitimate, right?
I want things to marinate. Sometimes the information needs
Yes,
to marinate so that it
yes,
can broaden and can deepen and can become
yes,
an amazing dish.
yes,
And I don't wanna
yes,
give you an impromptu snack or fast food. I wanna be able to give you something proper that is
yes.
meaningful, impactful as well.
Which leaders, if we are not if number 1, we assume everyone's like us and
Mm.
operates in the same
Yeah.
way, that
Yeah.
I would, in talking it out, get a better idea. So if we're talking it out and you don't have a better idea, then you must not have anything to add, right? That's a
Exactly.
default assumption unless we're intentional, and it's one of the ways that leaders silence people is to assume
Mm.
other people are like us, versus we've all got different wiring, different working
Mhm.
styles, and the aim isn't to get Vivian to fit into the box that I
Yeah.
like. The point is, how do I unleash her potential,
Mhm.
which would be, all right, let's let things marinate. Let's design the way we work in a way that there is time for marination, that the
Yes.
garlic and the salt can get in to the protein, if we're going to be
And you
technical.
know the best dishes come from marinating, right?
Yes. Except we've got to respond. We got to go. The
Mhm.
client needs a
Yeah.
response, right? We need to be quick and we miss out on that. So the real question for leaders is, do you want the best ideas or just the loudest and fastest? Your
Yes.
choice.
Yeah.
Your choice. If you want the best ideas, then how do you design a way of working? It still have your meeting, but instead of making the decision in that meeting, you create space for the Vivians of the world who have these
Mhm.
genius ideas
Yeah.
by saying, all right, everybody sleep on it. As you sleep on it, share what comes up in your post processing by replying all in the email. Right? It does a
Mm,
couple of things. Number one, it normalizes post processing, it normalizes
yeah.
marination. It normalizes that we have thoughts at different paces.
I have
Rather,
never seen that from a manager. I've never seen
okay,
that from a
I have
manager.
never
Great.
seen it, but it's such a small tweak,
Mhm.
such a small tweak that
Yeah,
has the power to
yeah.
access the ideas that we need the most at this point in time. Now, the other thing you'll notice though is saying, all right, we've normalized post processing. Now I've also made clear the avenue for communication, the avenue for
Mm,
re engaging. Because we all know, we spoke a little about this earlier of should I say something? Should I not say something? Should
yeah.
I email? Should I text? Should I call? Should I tweet? Should I ping? Right? And I get overwhelmed. Do I reply all or do I just do the individual? And all of those decisions, that's labor. Labor that can get overwhelming and inclines
Mhm.
people to just stay silent versus,
Yeah.
okay, my leader said reply all. I don't have to worry about flooding people's inboxes. We're going to reply all, right? We've reduced the unintentional barrier to people bringing their best talent to work.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. And I can also understand from that point that certain companies use certain platforms. I'm not gonna say that, but certain
Yeah.
platforms that where they can minimize the emails because the platforms are more chatty,
Yes.
where information is consumed whenever you want to without you
Yes.
going through the whole email thread,
Yeah.
which isn't ideal.
It depends, right? I think it lands with different people
Mhm.
differently, and that's
Yeah.
okay. So much as we acknowledge none of these choices are net neutral.
Yeah.
They make it easier for some people and harder for some people. This is the whole return to office debate. This is the asynchronous communication versus real-time conversation. Whose
Mhm.
preferences, whose strengths are we going to play to, right?
Mhm.
And if we're in a global environment, which we are,
Yeah.
9 AM in New York is not 9 AM in Bangalore
Yeah.
or in Singapore. Again, I have never found the perfect golden hour for global time zones. If someone knows it, share it or
There
monetize it.
isn't. We have
There
to split the
isn't.
world in half. You have this my sweet
Yes.
spot is between 3 p.m. my time, so that
Mm,
will be 9 a.m.
yeah.
and to also be able to interact with Pacific. That's
Yes.
this time is
Yes.
ideal as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And there's no way around that. Like that is how
Mhm.
time is structured, but
Yeah.
we can acknowledge that if I'm getting someone up at 4 AM to be present
Mm.
at the meeting, they might not be firing on all cylinders. So I shouldn't judge them in the same way.
Yeah.
Right, and how do you time shift or whose power hour do you prioritize? Those are all
Yeah.
design choices.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
forget as leaders that we could design differently because we've always had that 9 AM Eastern meeting. That's just the way this company works.
Yeah. Oh, I
That's a
hate that
design
line.
choice.
I hate that sentence. That's the way we work.
It's the way it's always been done. That's the way
Yeah.
things work around
That's
here if you
also
don't like it.
another way to silence somebody with shutting them down by saying
Yes.
that sentence, and it's in a way, it activates the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn
Yes.
mechanism, which is unnecessary. Unnecessary.
Yes, and then I think for each of us as workers or
Mhm.
as leaders, right, whether we have the title or not, the question
Mhm.
is, do I want to stay in this system? Do I want to try to effect change and lead within
Yeah.
the system? Is there enough give? If there's enough move, enough data that says I could actually lead fully, unleashing my potential and talent
Mm.
here? Or should I be looking elsewhere? And the
Yeah.
trap that we fall into is I have no options, right? We tell ourselves, I have no options. I'm stuck. This is it. I've just got to grin and bear it. Or I can't even grin it. I just need to bear it. Versus keeping a pulse on the market or thinking, what else is out there? Because there's the sunk cost fallacy of I've invested the startup costs here,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we burn ourselves out trying to change systems that either do not want to change or fundamentally were not built to consider the human beings involved.
Which brings me to, because this is a great hook to connect it to the following question, that how can people, individuals, conduct courageous conversations, whether it's about bias, whether it's about discrimination, but also about being real towards yourself when it comes to, is this space where I'm working at, is
Mm.
that the right space for me, or do I need to switch to another department, or do I need to find something else outside of the company?
Yeah. Those questions all are very near and dear to my heart because I know
Mhm.
they come with transaction costs,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And the best I can do is offer a framework for thinking about it. The
Mm.
first is looking at where are the levels of silence happening,
Mhm.
because one level of silence that we don't often examine is the ways we silence ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's also the level that we can most control. What is really tricky about that question is if we have been in a toxic environment or an environment where we aren't allowed to bring certain parts of ourselves to work because they're deemed unacceptable or inconvenient or not useful,
Mhm.
then our bodies modulate our expectations downwards,
Yeah.
right? And I don't actually dream anymore about what could be because to realize how much I've had to lower my expectations to keep the paycheck coming in is incredibly painful. And
Mhm.
so our brains do this recalibration that says, "Oh, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine." Right? There's a meme about it's fine when everything's burning
Yeah.
around us. So the first place is in what ways might you have silenced your needs, goals, hopes, and concerns to make
Yeah.
your current state feel bearable?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other internal work is what do I really want to be doing? How do I want to be living?
Mm.
So that's all internal work that no one else has to see. So
Yeah.
that tends to feel a little safer. Then there
Mm.
is what is the intersection between me and the system? If I
Mhm.
look at it objectively, how much have other people's words and actions been aligned? Right? Some workplaces say all the right things like we care about you, bring your full self to work, but the actual reactions and actions and
Mhm.
responses tell a different story.
Yeah.
And so often, many of us who want to be trusting, because it's a much better way or easier way to move through the world, we don't want to think that other people might not be operating out of integrity.
Mm.
So they say they care about inclusion, they say they care about me. That must have just been a bad day,
Let
right?
me
And
let
we
me sip my
discount.
drink. Let me sip my drink because
The
this is
aunties are
for a lot
speaking,
of
Vivian.
people. Oh, this is real for a lot of people
It's
where
real.
it's
It's
been
real.
plastered on the
It's
website, it's promoted on social media, but then
yes.
we have to convert it to what actions are connected to those mission statements.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's the, "Well, this was better than my last job,
Mm.
or at least it paid better this time." And honestly, maybe that's enough
Yeah,
because your main goal is to be able to
yeah,
pay your bills, to be present for your kid,
true,
pay for
true,
the caregiving in your life for your
true.
elders, whatever it is. But know that. And that to me is the difference between silence that is strategic and
Mhm.
silence that is damaging or oppressive is
Yeah,
agency. Okay, I know that this is not perfect. I know that this is misaligned, but I'm still going to choose to stay here because there's enough in it for me. Can
mhm.
you be sufficiently whole in this space? Or
Yeah,
is this part of a stepping stone in a process because you got to buy yourself time to gather more data, figure out what the other options are? I have lived this, right? It took me years to reconcile the reality that what some people said and what they did were
mhm.
incongruent, and I was the one who absorbed the cost. Then
Yeah,
there's the shame and the guilt of how could I have been so stupid?
it's not you. It's
I
literally not
know,
you.
I
It's
know.
literally not you.
And
Yeah,
the less we talk about it, the more we internalize,
yeah, exactly.
which is why we're talking about it here. But that's
And
I am
amplifying it as well.
amplifying. I am a fan of
Yeah,
always knowing what the options are out there.
yeah,
So if for no other reason that you come back to your current state and say, "Gosh, I actually do have it pretty good."
Yeah.
Or I appreciate this, I value this, right? This is trying to get to clarity.
Mhm.
And also when we think about workplaces, workplaces are not family. As much as people say, "Welcome to the family," I cringe every time I hear that. Number 1, I don't want the dysfunction and the weirdness of family at work. Go.
I had to bring in this card because this whole thing about being a family, I mean, not all families are just like Family Matters, or to bring
Mhm.
in a family that um, many people saw as an example, but because of the main character was a little bit, there is
Mm.
something else, but the Cosby
Yeah.
family, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there are dynamics within a family that I
Yes.
don't want to see back in the workplace. And
Yes.
also, I'm a person that, yeah, this whole thing about, us being a family, I don't know who started this, but this is such a cringe and
Yes.
such dysfunctional because certain workplaces can act toxic.
Yes.
Certain workplaces can be very traumatic for a lot of people. And
Yes.
here we go, spreading it around like, let's play pool or
Yeah.
let's play ping pong. And that's what families do and drink beer.
Here's my best take on it, right? If I want people to work hard,
Hmm.
sometimes more than they should, and to give
Yeah.
their best, I want them to feel like they belong. I
Yeah.
want them to feel like I care about you, and because we spend more than a third of our waking hours at work
Hmm.
typically, we want to believe that people care deeply, and sometimes we do
Yeah.
care deeply about each
Hmm.
other, and the
Yeah.
structures of employment are fundamentally transactional.
Hmm.
If it is at will employment and you can be let go at any time, and I wrote
Yeah.
recently about my own journey
Mm.
on LinkedIn that
Yeah.
more than a decade ends with a click of a Zoom call.
Mm.
We
Yeah.
need to be wise for ourselves to know what really matters to us in life, which
Hmm.
relationships we want to make sure are always present, and where
Yeah.
does work fit into all of that? I think the answer is gonna be different for everyone, but don't get caught in the trap of, "This is my work family, I'm all in," because you're setting yourself up for deep pain and disappointment because employers there's no reciprocity in that.
Yeah, definitely. I want to bring in a comment that somebody shared. I don't know who this person is. Unfortunately, there's something. Oh
LinkedIn
my,
user, we love you.
I do want to acknowledge you and support you for sharing this question. So spot on about the strategic choice. There's a big difference between choosing strategically and settling because you don't think you can do better. And the self-awareness makes all the difference. Knowing your value, setting your personal North Star, knowing your value, but also knowing your network,
Yeah.
that can be really valuable for you to do that. I want to
Yes.
dive into two questions and then I think I need to wrap it. So,
Yeah.
question number one is, what are some common barriers to for people to practice human-centered leadership?
That we forget we're human.
Mm, yeah.
Like, I think fundamentally, double loop learning says our results are a function of our actions, which are a function of our mindsets. And because we live in this highly automated world and
Mm,
leverage technology, right? We're
yeah.
literally doing this interview via technology. The gravity is to forget that
Mm,
behind it all are humans.
yeah.
And so often when I start an interview or a fireside chat, people say, "How do you want to be introduced?" And I'm like,
Mhm.
"I'm Elaine Lin Hering. I'm a fellow human being."
Mm.
And somehow that's that like radical idea. And it's like, it shouldn't be radical, but it is, which is why I start with that, right? You
Yeah,
look at someone online, you look at a social media profile, you look at a title, and we make all sorts of assumptions about
I
who
did.
they are.
I did.
And I hope you've realized, Vivian, we're
No,
just human beings.
no, I am going to rewrite the script that I have of you. Putting you on a pedestal, still putting you on a pedestal, but soft and kind and as human as much. And I appreciate you for sharing your humanness, because sometimes there are certain occasions, and not to, not to discredit future guest speakers or past guest speakers, sometimes it isn't easy to connect as a
Mm,
host, where you're meeting somebody for the first time. You
yeah.
get a sense through their book or through their interaction, but you don't know how they will respond. So for you responding this way, you're making my work easy, really.
Honored to. And glad that we both get to be human.
Yes,
We
yes.
both there's enough work in this world.
Mm, yes.
Let's not add pretending to be something we're not, literally a different species or a mechanized version of ourselves be something we also take on.
Yeah, there are enough alien sequels out there. I don't want to.
No, as a human being, I've completely forgotten the question you asked, so I'm gonna assume you'll keep us on track.
I'll keep you on track. It's about the barriers of practicing human-centered leadership.
Yeah, we forget that we're human,
Yeah.
right? And honestly, I have never met an intentionally ill-intentioned leader. There's probably a better
Mm,
way of saying that, right? But
yeah.
I have never met a
Well,
leader.
well,
Well,
there is.
yes. I've never met them personally. How's that? I've read about them in the headlines. I've never met them personally,
Okay,
right?
fair
But
enough. Fair enough.
average leader, even the one that
Mhm.
their direct reports say, "Oh my gosh, they're horrible."
Yeah,
Right? Like, "Oh my gosh, I can't wait to get
yeah,
transferred out of here."
yeah.
Oftentimes, that leader is saying, "I don't understand why my people won't talk with me."
Mm,
Right? We're all not only human beings, but broken human beings
yeah, and
with our
disconnected. Yeah.
disconnected, all having different life experiences, all
Mhm.
having different trauma, capital T trauma, lowercase t trauma, navigating the world in imperfect ways. But the biggest barrier is that we forget that behind the job title, senior vice president, junior analyst,
There's
you
somebody's
know,
daughter, somebody's son, somebody's
yes,
family member,
yes,
somebody's aunt. So yeah,
yes,
yeah,
security engineer number 3 or
yeah,
security engineer 3, job title,
yeah,
right? There is a real human being there too
yeah.
that has often had, because of conditioning and the way that our workplaces are structured, had
Mhm,
to make themselves a very flat or unidimensional version of
mhm.
themselves. And when I think about unleashing potential, it's really how do we become more of who we are
Yeah,
and allow for that? And leaders, by modeling, gosh, what a tough time in the world.
yeah,
Even just saying that versus, all right, let's move to the next item. Let's do the thing. Business as usual. This moment in time, these years of our lives are not business as usual, as there are fires literally and figuratively going on.
Oh, I'm putting on the wrong card, sorry.
You're leaving the meeting. Now I'm worried.
2 things. I love what you're saying, but I also wanna be respectful of your time. I know I've booked you for an hour, so I wanna ask this final question.
Yeah.
What is your wish for 2030 when it comes to humanizing the workplace and also human-centered leadership?
That we acknowledge more of who we actually are. And
Mm,
we are creating spaces for more of that, not only because it unleashes our potential and allows
yeah,
us to live more fully, but because that is what is going to keep and create jobs
yeah.
that AI cannot take.
Mm, mic drop.
All right. I think we landed it.
Thank you so much, Elaine, for having this unscripted conversation, but also opening up your heart towards this conversation because I really enjoyed it. And for those of you who are watching the replay, please connect with Elaine, look up her book, she has so many amazing interviews that I consume them from time to time because there
Mm,
are different roads that lead to unlearning silence. And silence is can be powerful,
yeah.
but it can also be act up as a shackle. So thank you for writing this and curious about future books that might be coming out?
Eventually, eventually. To me, silence is so big.
Mm,
One of the things we didn't talk about is so often the things caused by silence are
mm,
misdiagnosed,
yeah.
right? We're told you need more courage, you need more confidence, go fix
Mm,
yourself, you need to be more assertive, less assertive. And so there is an education needed. My hope is that we are talking about silence the way that people
mm,
talk now about shame. It's part of
mm,
our day-to-day vernacular of how we
mhm,
see the world, because to me, that is the unlock for potential, for living fully, for us to actually get to be human. So you'll be hearing me in talking about silence and unlearning silence probably for the rest of my life with other things to come, but that's where my heart is and that's where my
mhm.
focus is, um, until I figure out what else is missing, and then we'll
Hmm.
add it to the conversation.
Looking forward to see any future books or any side pieces that you write because it's valuable, and
Mm.
I'm reading it from a perspective of a person of color, but I'm also reading it as a woman. I'm reading it from so many different lenses that it applies to so many different lenses. So thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Okay, now I need to end the live session. Yay!